Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to continue with the evidence in this case. The state may call its next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Erin Christensen.
Please come up to the witness stand, and when you get up here, remain standing and raise your right hand to be sworn in by the clerk.
I do.
Thank you. You may have a seat. Get yourself situated nice and close to the microphone and start by stating your name, spelling both your first and last for the record.
My name is Erin Christensen. My first name spelling is Erin, E-R-I-N, Christensen, C-H-R-I-S-T-E-N-S-E-N.
Specialist Christensen, how are you employed?
I am employed at the City of Waukesha Police Department.
And as a specialist, you're also a sworn law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been with the City of Waukesha Police Department?
In my 23rd year.
And prior to becoming a specialist, were you a patrol officer?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to becoming a specialist, did you have any other roles within the City of Waukesha Police Department besides being the patrol officer?
Yes, I'm also a crime prevention specialist.
Okay. Now, as in your current role as a specialist, is there a particular unit or type of work that you engage in?
Yes, one of the things I do is I work with detectives who provide me records from that have usually a location information on them from different providers like cell phone companies, and I can then look through them and map them for the detectives for their cases.
Okay. Now, you talked about receiving location records from a detective who's investigating a case. When detectives bring you that data, what kind of format are those records in or that data in?
It depends on the phone company, but usually it is in a PDF or an Excel format, text format, just depends on the provider.
Okay. And in analyzing these location records, how long have you been doing that?
Since about 2015.
And do you have to go through any kind of specialized training in order to know how to read these records and use the software that assists in reading these records?
Yes, my first training was in 2015, and this was an introductory course, and it went over, at that time, telephone providers and like for cell phone companies, and went through how kind of the basic, the fundamentals of how it works for cell phone companies and usage, and how they then have different reports that they're logging in the background after people use them. And then we're able to get those reports potentially and then use that information that are on those along with something called a cell site list and map those records.
Are you familiar with the program CellHawk?
Yes.
And for the court reporter, is that CELLHAWK?
Yes.
Okay, what is CellHawk?
CellHawk is the program that we use at our police department to map these records. Many of these records have hundreds, if not thousands, of points or lines that can be mapped with location information. So whereas I used to start by hand being able to do this, now with having so many records, we have this platform called CellHawk that I can upload these reports to that were given to me by the cellular company, and then that will put them into this platform and map them for me.
When we're talking about cell phone providers, what are the major providers whose records you are having or seeing most consistently in your work?
AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon.
Okay. Do each of those providers keep generally the same kinds of information, just maybe in a different format, or have different retention periods?
Yes, each of those do have different formats on those. Some have kind of names that are slightly different for different columns within a document, but overall they have a lot of the same type of information.
And can CellHawk understand or account for the differences in the records depending on which provider gave us the records?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is CellHawk changing any of the data in the records that the detectives receive from the provider?
No.
Are you the one who, actually, no, sorry, strike that. Do you have to have any kind of specialized training, or do you have certification in using the CellHawk software?
Yes, I did go to a class in 2018. That was 3 days. Also one in 2024 for 3 days. And I've received many other hours of instruction from them by like webinars or other training that I could sign up for. Those go over the same thing. Kind of, they always go, many of these classes go through the basics of this is what a cell company is. This is how you would map it if you were to do it by hand. These are the different documents that providers may give to you. And this is how you could map them. And then this is our program. And this is how you upload them, how you map them, and different ways to display them.
Since 2015, can you give an estimate of how many cases that you've worked on where you've had to analyze these kinds of records?
I would guess probably over 75.
Okay. Now, when you are inputting this data into CellHawk and it provides you with the output, whether that is you can view it in a static view, meaning it doesn't move, or you can create an animation based on the data, do you need to know any details about the underlying investigation in which the detective, sorry, I got distracted. When you are performing this analysis, when the detectives bring you these records, do you need to know anything about that underlying investigation?
I don't need to know.
What is what, if any, information do the detectives provide to you when they give you these records?
Sometimes they'll provide me with dates of interest, times of interest, or time spans of interest, maybe other phone numbers that they're interested in.
Okay. Now, let's say, because we are going to eventually talk about records in this investigation, if you received records from AT&T for an individual identified as Carlos Maldonado, do you know Carlos Maldonado?
No.
Do you need to know him or know anything about how he's involved in a case in order to do your job?
No.
Moving on then, were you asked to assist in a death investigation that started after remains were found at 1512 East North Street on October 30th of 2024?
Yes.
And was that Detective Ben Stern sitting next to me who came to you to ask for your assistance in mapping records he received from cell phone providers?
Yes.
Were you able to take those records and upload them into CellHawk and create the animation or the static views of those records?
Yes.
Did you also prepare a PowerPoint for your testimony today that encompassed all of those results?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please turn on the screen in front of the jury? In front of the witness? Okay, Specialist Christensen, do you see this on your screen in front of you?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, can you wipe the screen? Thank you. Okay. Do you see the exhibit sticker in bottom right-hand corner, Exhibit 91?
Yes.
And I will briefly go through all 14 slides. Okay. Having briefly reviewed all 14 of those slides, is this an accurate representation or accurate copy of the PowerPoint you prepared for your testimony today?
Yes.
I would move Exhibit 91 into evidence and ask to publish to the jury as we go through it.
Mr. Lychwick, any objection to the admission of Exhibit 91?
In light of what we discussed when I returned from break, your question is ridiculous, Your Honor. I have nothing to say anymore throughout these proceedings today.
Mr. Lychwick, that's
I'm
your
here under
first warning.
duress.
Mr. Lychwick, that's your first warning that the court's going to give you about talking back to the court and talking out of order. The question was whether or not you had an objection to Exhibit 91. Do you? All right. Without a response from the defendant, that exhibit will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you. And I would ask that it be published as I go through it with the specialist.
Mr. Lychwick, any objection to the publication of Exhibit number 91? Without response, that will be allowed to be used with the jury.
Specialist Christensen, when you are mapping out these records and you end up either having to testify in court or just continuing to assist in the investigation, have you prepared PowerPoints like this before?
Yes.
And in the beginning part of this PowerPoint, are there some general definitions or terms or explaining the methodology of historical location cell site analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to the second slide then, what method do you use to evaluate these records?
I put 3 bullet points here. It's just letting you know that cell phone companies maintain databases that capture and store information related to the usage of each customer's cellular phone. The databases generate call detail records, which are also sometimes referred to as CDRs.
What information is contained in the grouping of call detail records?
The information can vary slightly, but for the most part, it's the date, the time, the duration, the called number, the calling number. They also capture the cell tower, the cell sector, or the cell site, sometimes the antenna used.
Is it fair to say then when we're evaluating call detail records, those records are user activity on the phone, meaning someone is actually using the phone, which generates the call detail records?
Not always. It could be that it's voice, text, sometimes data, depending upon the provider and what records they're providing to me that is in the CDR. AT&T, their CDR contains voice document, a data document, and also an SMS document. Not all other providers do it the same way.
Are you familiar with the phrase timing advance?
Yes.
What is timing advance?
Timing advanced is specialized location information that the provider keeps for themselves to analyze their own network and how it's running.
So what's the difference then between the timing advance data and CDRs?
Timing advanced data is something that the cell provider uses internally to analyze how the network and the towers kind of react with each person's phone to know if they need to do anything else for maybe upgrading their equipment.
And I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that I've been told.
Now, that kind of data, the timing advance, is is that the phone kind of working in the background even though someone might not actually be using their phone?
Correct.
Okay, so the phone is always connecting or looking for the strongest source or the best signal from that particular cell site. Do I have that right?
Yeah, as anybody's sitting and has their phone on, your phone might not be getting calls or texts, but it's just sitting there, always analyzing the network and saying, if I'm going to work the best, which tower am I, or cell site, which one am I going to use right now if a call comes in so that call isn't dropped. And so you're able to make calls efficiently.
Moving on then to the next slide, when we are talking about cell site analysis, what is the technology that these providers are using to gather this information, or how the phone is connecting to the cell site?
So just on a real basic level, cell phones are pretty much radios, and these use radio frequencies to communicate. As it says that when they are on, they're always looking, constantly scanning the network and looking for the best signal. Typically, the strongest and cleanest signal generally comes from the tower that is closest to the phone or the tower with the best line of sight, but not always. So typically, it is using the best signal that it's evaluating constantly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Now, we've talked about cell sites, and is there a difference between a cell site and a cell tower?
They're typically the same thing. They can be referred to by different carriers and people. A cell tower can also be called a cell site. The reason being is cell towers typically are things that maybe if you're driving around, you see a tower that has antennas on it. These days, it's not necessarily on a tower. It could be in a church steeple. It could be on a water tower. They could be on the side of a building or on top of a building. So they're not necessarily a traditional tower always, but you might hear people talk about them in the same way. They might say cell tower or cell site, and they're probably talking about the same thing.
Okay. Now, when we talk about a typical cell tower or cell site, is that, or does that involve the provider kind of splitting that up into different sectors?
Yes.
When you're analyzing cell site records, what do I mean by sector?
When a provider will give us in their records a cell site that is used, and then that cell site, they give us what is called an azimuth, which is the center point of a sector. Cell sites are typically divided into, think of a pizza, into 3 equal parts. And each of those parts have different antennas within them those are the ones that are getting the signal and deciding the device and where it's connecting to it.
And moving on to the next slide, there's a couple illustrations that will probably help us as we talk through what a sector is. So on the far right-hand side, that image, is that kind of the pizza shape or the pie shape that you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that center point then, is that the azimuth that you were just talking about?
No, not really. That's just showing you that, yes, that is the center point, but they will specifically give us the azimuth in degrees. So we know right away when we're looking at these documents that as you're dividing it up equally, each sector is about 120 degrees. So if they give us that middle point, I think another slide will talk a little bit more about that. But it's just showing you a tower here to give you an idea that there's 3 different sides of that tower to explain the pie theory, the pizza theory.
And does each cell tower or cell site have a unique identifier assigned to them by the provider?
Yes.
Is that how we know which cell site is being used then by a device?
Yes.
And when you get when the detectives get all their returns back from the provider after obtaining a warrant from the court, do you also receive in those records a list of cell sites?
Yes, I get it from there. Also, AT&T has us go to Endocac to get those records as well.
Okay, and is that
I explained it on another
okay, thank
one,
you.
if that helps.
Just so that I get that spelling for the court reporter.
Yes.
Now, moving on to the next slide then, when we're talking about cell sectors, which are those individual pieces of that pizza, explain to me how this assists us in figuring out what a sector is and then how we'll eventually read it on a cell hawk map.
Okay. So what I have on this slide is something that you will see on the static map that you will see in a little bit, and also the animated map. Typically, like I said, they're divided into sectors, so you will see the purple one that's on the left side or the blue one. Now, I want to let you know that that wedge is something that I draw. I decide how far it is. That is not from the provider. So I don't necessarily have to have anything shaded. I could also have a larger shading. It's just from the tower, and that is saying that the phone is somewhere in that sector, but it does not mean that it's within that shaded area.
If, when you are reviewing records that you've been given by the detective who got it from the provider, if you are only seeing CDR records in this return without any of that timing advance or another type of advanced location data, could you have larger breaks in or larger gaps in the records that you're looking at?
Yes.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing there. It's just that type of information that would be in that gap was not received by the provider. Is that fair to say? Or from the provider?
Yeah, the CDRs show usage, whether they're making kind of calls, texting, or receiving them.
In looking at the next slide, which is slide 7, it looks like this is an example of the cell site and sector that we just kind of talked about in the last slide.
This is just to get you an idea of it, how it would look on like an actual map.
And then this shaded, actually no, you can't see it, but if we have the 3 sectors, that light shaded area within the circle around that center point, that's your shadowing. So you can see the direction in which that sector is facing. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you referenced an azimuth earlier. Does this slide help explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so to kind of break down how we think about the degrees, you can think of it as a clock. So if you were looking at 12 o'clock, that could be 0 degrees, which is pointed north. Cell phone companies will let us know that azimuth. So if it is at 0 degrees, that means that the sector will go to 60 degrees and then to 300 degrees the opposite way, and then so on around it.
Now, with this slide here, slide 9, this is an example of timing advance measurements. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the case that Detective Stern asked you to assist with, in terms of analyzing phone records, did you receive timing advance records for phone numbers for either an individual named Carlos Maldonado or Kevin Lychwick?
For Maldonado.
Okay. Now, can you explain then these arcs on the timing advance?
Yes. So the point that comes together, the middle of the pie for that sector, that is where the cell site is. And then the sector goes out from it. And then the timing advance has a measurement on there, or a number that gives us a distance from the measurement from the cell site to the device at the time of connection.
Are you able to tell from those arcs where exactly a device is located on that arc?
No.
Why not?
It is not giving me a specific point on the arc. It's just saying it's likely this distance from the center in this sector on that arc somewhere.
Okay. How would you be able to obtain an exact location if the timing advance just tells you an area on the arc in that sector that a device would be? Is there a way to do that?
There's different ways with communicating to detectives, so they could potentially get video from somewhere, or other types of records, potentially other types of location records as well.
Okay, so if we're talking about the detective has to go to an area in that sector that we've talked about, that requires them to physically go. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, and they would have to drive around the area and either look for cameras or look for anything that could corroborate or try to narrow down the location of that device within that sector. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in this case, you talked about, or I referenced to you, an individual named Carlos Maldonado. So now that we are moving into the specific records you reviewed, what is this slide detailing for us?
This is just letting you know that Detective Stern provided them the records for me. He asked me to look at activity on April 14th, 2024. It gave me the device phone number. It was from AT&T. The records he provided included subscriber information, the declaration about the records key, which tells me little intricacies about how to read the records, and various usage reports. And then he also provided me with a Google location data from his Google account, and then other specific usage documents and authenticity.
When we're talking about that declaration or authenticity, what kind of document is that?
That's that whoever was at that phone provider pulled those and are saying that they're true and accurate.
Okay, and that's something that comes with each set of records. Is that fair to say that you've analyzed?
Yeah, typically.
Okay. As you are reviewing, and I guess first I should ask, the phone number for Carlos Maldonado, was that serviced by AT&T?
Yes.
Okay, and now once you get those records from AT&T, do they give you a cell site list or tell you specifically how to read these or interpret these records?
AT&T does not provide a cell site list on some of their documents. They do have some location information on them. However, the location information is specific to the time the report is run. So given that this case wasn't from about November of 2024, and we believed that the incident occurred in April, we were about 6 months that those tower locations would have been could have been different. So the stuff that was on the report. So we are directed to get and best practice is to get a cell site listing from the time of the incident. So usually it can be, the same month or a month right around it. And I was able to get one through the National Domestic Communications Assistance Center, which is under the Department of Justice, and I got that cell site list from April of 2024.
Does each provider, when they return records, use Central Time, or are there different time zones that Cellhawk can actually convert?
They provide them in many times different time zones. So they could be in UTC, they could be in Eastern Time. Some providers provide them all in UTC. Some have different ones depending upon the document they give you. The nice thing about Cellhawk is that when it ingests, I let it know I want it to convert the times to Central Time, which is the location of where our crime was. And then that way, all the records for all the different providers potentially are in a universal time. I'm not altering any documents, the original documents by any means. It is just a way to show consistently then the times now and where we are.
And moving to the next slide then, what are we looking at here on slide 12?
Here, this is just an overview of our area. Those orange circles are just cell sites for AT&T specifically. So those are all the different cell sites at that time in April of 2024 that are in the area. Those are not ones that are used by Maldonado. Those are just all that could have been used depending upon where somebody decided to go.
Now, slide 13, is this a static view of timing advanced data and Google location history for Mr. Maldonado on April 14th of 2024?
Yes, it also has the CDR information.
And the CDR. Okay, thank you for correcting me. So are all of these, I guess, images that we see, all of these blue lines, and these are all sectors?
Yes.
Okay. And now, on the next slide, when we see this animation, how is the jury supposed to be interpreting this? Because it looks like just a bunch of blue circles everywhere.
Yeah, so this is just saying that this is his usage on those CDRs, so that could be his voice, his data, his SMS for that day, but it also is that report timing advance, so also information that is just running in the background of his phone when it connects to check for those the best signal. It should be noted that the static here, it'll show the sector for the timing advance, but it is not showing the arcs for it on this static one. You will see those in the next slide. It only worked with the animated at the time of this.
Okay. And when we watch the animated, will it start with the same overview map that we're seeing now on this static slide?
It will not. You will see it starting off in an area at one sector near 1512 East North Street, Waukesha. You can also see that on this map, kind of in the center of it, with that red marker. And then you can also see an orange marker in the Delafield area with that orange marker.
And on this animation that we're about to see, are you able to see a path of travel that the device associated with Mr. Maldonado took to that Home Depot in Delafield and then come back to 1512 East North?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry.
roughly 8 a.m. to about 9:30. You'll see it using the cell sites in the area of 1512 East North Street. And then you'll start to see the sectors or cell sites start being used right in that area and then traveling kind of westbound towards the Delafield area around 9:40, 45 to about 10:30. It stays right in that area of Delafield by Home Depot. And shortly after, around 10:35, you'll start seeing the cell sites and sectors start being used traveling eastbound, going back towards the Waukesha area.
Moving on then to slide 14. On the right-hand side, kind of in between the map and the key, There's a gray column with what looks like different toggles and buttons on the bottom. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is this the CellHawk software? Is this the map that gets generated once you upload all of these records from AT&T?
Yes, so this is the CellHawk software, and both of these, the images from the previous slide and this one, are screenshots from that. I then can set the selector at the bottom, so 1 second of time on this animated map equals 5 minutes. So stuff will be pretty quick when you start to see it, but you will definitely see the movement.
Okay, and right now, before I press play, can you see that red, I know it's kind of small on the big screen, it's smaller than I thought it would be, the red dot at 1512 East North? Do you see that?
Yes.
And then a little bit below it, we see a sector, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what, if I'm understanding correctly, that sector, because that shaded area is what you filled in, so you can't say exactly where in that sector the device is, but this is the general direction, or it'd be within that sector, is that
Yes.
correct?
It's saying that there was some sort of usage in that sector.
Okay, and is that something then you see throughout the day once Mr. Maldonado's device comes back to the building at 1512 East North?
Yes.
Okay, so I will press play then.
Did you want to do the Google locations too? Or
Yes.
talk about that next?
No, we can also talk about that before I press play. So the Google locations, how does that relate to the timing advance in this path that we're about to see?
So the Google locations, you will see those as kind of a teal color. Something to note about those is that when I get those records, those are also converted into Central Time by CellHawk. I select in CellHawk to only display bubbles that you will see or markers that are 300 meters or less. If I have a larger one on there, it's going to take over the entire thing and you won't be able to see anything else. So I really narrow it down. You're going to see tiny little teal marks potentially that are like the size of a pen tip. So you have to really watch for them. You will also see the time that they're being displayed. So know that if you don't see the actual mark, it is like probably right behind that time that we're seeing it. And you'll also be able to see that traffic kind of going, I want to say around 8:50. They'll start near that 1512, kind of travel south towards the downtown area of Waukesha, go up Delafield Street to Northview, heading westbound all the way on Northview, eventually get to Silvernail, continue to head westbound onto Hillside Drive in Delafield to Home Depot, and then travel back on 94 eastbound to Pewaukee Road, and then go towards the residence at 1512 East North Street.
And when you're looking at the rest of the day on April 14th of 2024, once the device comes back to that sector, do you see any movement at all like you do when we see the device going to Delafield or the Brookfield area?
No, it will predominantly uses the towers that are around the residence at 1512, and then the Google locations stay right in that area as well.
So from what you can tell, that device isn't moving then the rest of the day once it comes back from Delafield and Home Depot.
Correct.
Okay. Now on slide 14, I will play the animated map. Okay, I'm pausing. There is no timestamp on the bar that pops up here, but if I look at the timestamp on the Cellhawk software, it looks like 12:50 and 51 seconds on April 14th of 2024. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when we watched that animated map, did you start seeing those larger arcs that we were talking about earlier related to timing advance?
Yes.
And then this path of travel to the Delafield Home Depot, all you do with that is show the detectives, this is what I found. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And then it's up to the detectives to find out whether there's any kind of corroborating evidence out there to show that the owner of that device was in the area with the device. Fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we saw for a little bit before I paused it at that 12:50 and 51 seconds, we saw that same blue sector pop up right below that red marking or marker, and then it would go away and then it would pop up again. Is that the device running in the background and that's what's catching on that sector, or is there something else?
I'm not sure if it had the ARC or not.
Okay.
I'm not sure which data. It would be either from that. It would be from one of those documents. I can't say for certain. Occasionally, the timing advance does not have an ARC associated with it, so it still could be on that document, but I can't tell you which one.
Okay, so it could either be running in the background, but it could also be the CDR type of activity that we talked about earlier. Is that maybe more likely because you're not seeing the ARC? Or you just can't tell for sure?
Without looking at the records specifically, I couldn't tell you which one it was exactly.
Okay, thank you. Now, we also talked in the beginning about how Detective Stern, when he came to you, he provided you records for Carlos Maldonado and Kevin Lychwick. What provider serviced Kevin Lychwick's phone number?
Verizon.
Okay. Have you had experience with Verizon before in terms of getting these cell site records?
Yes.
Does Verizon have a short retention period when it comes to that specialized location data of the timing advance?
Yes.
Do you know what that retention period is?
Less than 10 days.
So if we were looking at April 14th of 2024, and now we don't start getting or requesting cell site data from providers until 7 months later, for Verizon, that specialized information is gone. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with the police department not asking for the right information. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did you receive any records from Detective Stern that he obtained from Verizon?
Yes.
Okay, and specifically as to Mr. Lychwick's phone number?
Yes.
So even though we didn't have that specialized timing advance, are we still able to get any of those CDR types of records that we talked about?
Yes.
Did you upload Mr. Lychwick's CDR records into Cellhawk in an attempt to perform a cell site analysis?
Yes.
Were you able to get any information of value from the records that we obtained from Verizon?
No,
Why not?
there was no location information. There was no usage and no location information for those days.
Okay. I do not actually, one more question. For AT&T, what's their retention period
For
for the specialized location data?
specialized, I think that's 13 months.
Okay, so if we did not start in this investigation until 7 months after the date in question, that's still well within the range, and that's how we were able to get those records for Mr. Maldonado's phone
Yes.
number. Okay. Now I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Lychwick, do you have any cross-examination questions? The defendant is not responding to the court. Therefore, Specialist Christensen, you may step down.
Thank you.